In July 1955, 6 boys with troubled pasts arrive at a special reformatory. Once inside, they meet the director Sasaki, who places them in a cell with another fellow. He immediately greets the new boys by beating the hell out of the 6 with his boxing skills. And here's our boys by the order as they fall. Mario, who hospitalized a teacher to protect a female classmate. Tohiyama, who assaulted his mom's abusive boyfriend. Maeda, the monkey-faced thief who decided to eat and run without paying. Joe, who beat up someone who wanted to do the bedroom dance with him. Matsuura, who got drunk and decided to beat the hell out of someone. And Ryuji, the intelligent schemer caught stealing at malls. And finally, the master of all beatings, Sakuragi, whom we have no idea why he's there. Just after the fight, the guard Ishihara appears, and I can tell you already that he's the person with the most punchable face in this anime. He was eager to discipline the boys. However, he shows leniency since it's their first day. His mercy doesn't extend to Sakuragi and shows the others what awaits them for the rest of their days. Ishihara invites the boys to retaliate, but they refuse. Just as Ishihara is about to strike, Sakuragi intervenes. The guard's fury grows, but director Sasaki steps in, reminding him not to hit the boys. Although Sakuragi's eyes tell us otherwise. When Sakuragi awakens from his beating, he discovers the boys have tenderly cleaned his wounds. Grateful, they share a bonding moment, and Sakuragi makes it clear he won't be their boss. He knows they struggled and ended up here. A month later, the 6 boys formed a bond, each focusing on training for their individual goals after leaving the reformatory. Mario is sharpening his boxing skills under Sakuragi's guidance. Tohiyama is working on his body to become a soldier, while the others pursue their own paths. Maeda finds happiness in their new brotherhood as an orphan who has been living on the streets for a decade. Joe, another orphan, reveals that his little sister, Meg, is in an orphanage, and he is determined to reunite with her. One day, Joe is informed that he has visitors. Excited, he hopes it's his sister, but instead, he is met by the orphanage director who informs him that Meg is about to be adopted. The news shatters Joe's heart, and he spends the day reminiscing about the time their mother abandoned them and the struggles they faced together. That afternoon, a window of opportunity for escape opens when the exit doors are unlocked for supplies. Sensing Joe's pain and desperation, Maeda comes up with a plan. He bites his own arm and screams that a snake bit him, creating a diversion. The other boys join in, causing chaos, while Joe hesitates. Sakuragi gives Joe an encouraging push, and with the support of his friends, Joe seizes the chance to escape. Joe steals some clothes and navigates through the neighborhood, making his way to the orphanage. Upon arrival, Joe demands to see Meg, but the director has anticipated his arrival and summons the guards. Joe exposes the director's perverted acts. Yes, she's the old rag who got beaten up for taking his innocence away. But she gets angry and strikes him with a vase, deciding to end his life with scissors. Meg intervenes and stops the director. Joe implores Meg to leave with him, but she already knows her fate and reassures him she can take care of herself. Heartbroken and defeated, Joe gets kicked to the wet floor, tears streaming down his face. His sister was happy to have seen him, but she doesn't want him to carry the burden of worrying about her. 2 weeks later, Joe returns to his friend's cell, having endured isolation, starvation, and daily beatings. Still reeling from his sister's departure, he finds comfort in the boys' support. Ryuji questions why they helped Joe if he failed, but Sakuragi explains that courage and hope are all they have. Inspired, Joe vows to pursue his dream of becoming a singer. Hoping that someday, she will recognize him, and they will be together again. The Brotherhood is disrupted during dinner when Ryuji accuses Sakuragi of murdering his parents. The tension escalates, but Ishihara appears and takes Sakuragi away for punishment, revealing to be the one who planned it, just to punish Sakuragi. This sadist gave him another massive beating, and when Sakuragi returns to the cell, he follows Ryuji to the library, overhearing Ishihara pressuring Ryuji to frame Sakuragi for hiding lung destroyers. However, before Ishihara can act, a fire breaks out due to Ryuji's destroyer. Panic ensues as everyone evacuates, but Ishihara tosses away the key to the boys' cell, thinking Sakuragi is inside. Ryuji and Ishihara are stunned to see Sakuragi outside, demanding to know the whereabouts of the others. Ryuji panics, denying responsibility for the fire. Realizing his friends are in danger, Sakuragi decides to risk his life to save them. Ryuji doesn't understand why Sakuragi would save the boys, as they no longer trust him after learning about the alleged murder of his parents. Sakuragi, however, doesn't care about it. In his heart, they are still his friends, and he races back into the burning building. In the cell, the boys are struggling to breathe as the thick smoke from the fire engulfs the room. They're losing hope, fearing that they won't survive. But Sakuragi appears, determined to rescue his friends. He tries to force the cell door's latch open with all his strength. Sakuragi fights with the latch for several minutes, but it refuses to budge. Suddenly, an explosion rocks the building, and the ceiling collapses onto Sakuragi. His leg is trapped under heavy debris, and the boy's hope fades. Witnessing Sakuragi's selflessness, Ryuji regrets betraying his friends and abandoning them. Fueled by remorse, he searches for the key to the cell, eventually finding it after enduring a vicious beating from Ishihara. With the key in hand, Ryuji opens the cell and wakes everyone up. The boys get up and work together to remove the debris trapping Sakuragi's leg. Outside, Ishihara laughs maliciously, thinking that Sakuragi has died in the fire. But to his astonishment, the boys make an appearance. He didn't know what face to make seeing them, but he didn't need to know because Sakuragi hits with a massive punch before falling unconscious. A few days later, Sakuragi wakes up in the infirmary, where the nurse informs him that everyone is fine and has been worried about him. Sakuragi then reveals the reason he's in the reformatory. He's guilty of his father's death. His father and elder brothers went to war and never returned, only for his father to reappear 8 years later, a broken man who had become an alcoholic and abusive toward his family. To cope, Sakuragi immersed himself in boxing as an escape. But one day, during a heated argument with his father, Sakuragi questioned whether his father had returned only to prove he was a pathetic parent. These harsh words seemed to deeply affect his father, who was later found dead by the river. Sakuragi believes his words may have driven his father to end it all, as he couldn't understand his father's pain and anguish. Unknown to Sakuragi, the boys have been eavesdropping on his confession. They enter the room, and Ryuji, feeling guilty, admits that he started the fire. But Sakuragi tells him that he was their hero, increasing the group bond. A month after the fire incident, Sakuragi has fully recovered and returns to the cell with his friends. Ishihara has been suspended, and a new guard named Kumagai has taken his place. Kumagai is kind and empathetic towards the boys, and for the first time, the boys experience some peace and tranquility. As Sakuragi will be released in 1 month, he shares with the others his dream of becoming a professional boxer and promises to wait for them outside the reformatory. Excited by their future, the boys carve their names and dreams into a tree, vowing to reunite once they have all been released. However, Ishihara returns and takes Sakuragi to a solitary cell, supposedly following the normal procedure for someone who's about to be released. In reality, Ishihara locks Sakuragi in a cell with a group of bullies who proceed to beat him up every night. At lunchtime, Mario overhears the bullies talking about their plan to continue punishing Sakuragi for 3 more weeks. Mario confronts them, but they lie about it. Mario, however, notices the bruises on their hands and realizes that they have been beating his friend. He immediately punches one of the bullies, but the guards quickly stop him. Back in the cell, the bullies throw Sakuraji's food on his head, humiliating him. But Sakuraji remains stoic, picking up the food from the floor and eating it without retaliating. Determined to protect his friend, Mario approaches the bullies the next day and asks them to beat him instead of Sakuraji. The bullies brutally assault Mario, leaving him on the floor. To punish him, one of the bullies smashes Mario's right hand with a large stone. Despite Mario's sacrifice, the bullies continue to beat up Sakuraji. They even reveal to him what they did to Mario, unknowingly awakening Sakuraji's rage. Furious that someone hurt his friend, Sakuraji wastes no time in exacting his revenge. He lands a powerful punch on one of the bullies, knocking out two of the guy's teeth in the process. The remaining bullies are left battered and bruised after Sakuraji's fierce retaliation. Ishihara, eager to find a way to punish Sakuraji, puts him in solitary confinement without food or water. He personally delivers Sakuraji's meals but drops the food in the toilet to taunt him. Ishihara's actions stem from Sakuraji's knowledge of a dark secret involving both Ishihara and Sasaki. If you thought Sasaki was a good guy, you got it wrong. A year ago when Sakuraji first arrived at the Reformatory, he met his cellmate, Hayino, who had been put there for trying to steal money to pay for his sick mother's medical bills. Ishihara and Sasaki were aware of Hayino's desperation for early release and persuaded him to accept a deal, which resulted in being a pain in Hayino's bottom half, if you understand. So, he would get out early, if he did some night favors for Sasaki. When Hayino discovered that he had been deceived, he decided to meet his mother again, this time in his next life, leaving a note for Sakuraji that revealed the truth. Ishihara and Sasaki covered up the real cause of Hayino's death, but Sakuraji remained determined to avenge his friend. Back in the group's cell, the boys grow increasingly concerned about Sakuraji's, suspecting that he hasn't eaten for days. They save some of their own food and have Maeda deliver it to Sakuraji at night. Maeda receives a beating for his efforts, but it is worth it to see Sakuraji's grateful reaction. With tears in his eyes, Sakuraji tells Maeda that the food is the best thing he has ever eaten. Reflecting on his memories of Hayino and his newfound friends, Sakuraji expresses his wish to spend more time with the group. After 10 days, Ishihara returns to the cell, expecting to find Sakuraji in the afterlife. However, to his surprise, Sakuraji remains strong and kicking. Meanwhile, Mario is still recovering from his hand injuries when Kumagai visits him. He shares that he overheard some conversations and reveals that Sasaki and Ishihara are working together to end Sakuraji. A few days later, Mario receives an unexpected visit from Ishihara, who informs him that he will be taken back to the Reformatory. Before leaving, Ishihara hands Mario a newspaper with an article reporting Kumagai's death. The report claims that Kumagai drowned in a river after getting drunk. However, Mario knows that Ishihara is responsible for Kumagai's death. It turns out that Kumagai had discovered Sakuraji lying on the cell floor with a hose pouring cold water on him, an attempt by Ishihara to lower Sakuraji's body temperature and ultimately kill him. And at that moment, Ishihara sneaked behind him. Upon his return, Mario shares everything he has learned with the rest of the boys. They decide to make a crazy attempt to save Sakuraji, despite the risk involved. Ryuji uses his intelligence to devise a plan, but the stakes are high. If they fail, they could all end up in juvenile prison. Despite the risks involved, the group is determined to save their friend Sakuraji, the one who had both beaten them up on the first day and treated them as human beings. Their plan is simple: take advantage of Sunday when there are fewer guards and strike during the shift change. Their first goal is to obtain the key that will lead them to freedom, so they decide to target Sasaki's keys. Joe knows that Sasaki is attracted to him, so he pretends to be sick to get close to him during an examination. He successfully tricks Sasaki, strangles him, and steals the key. Their next step is to rescue Sakuragi. Mario confronts Ishihara, who has been watching Sakuragi suffer, and beats him up before carrying Sakuragi on his back. Mario is shocked by how light Sakuragi has become due to his lack of food and water. As the group makes their escape, the alarm is triggered by Sasaki and Ishihara, who regained consciousness. To help his friends, Ryuji sacrifices himself by destroying the electricity supply powering the building. As they reach the gate, Matsuura also sacrifices himself to hold off the guards. To prevent anyone from following, Tadayoshi closes the gate from the inside and breaks the key, ensuring the safety of Sakuragi, Maeda, Joe, and Mario. As the remaining trio escapes with Sakuragi, they start to tear down, feeling the smell of freedom. However, their celebration is short-lived, as Ishihara attempts to stab Mario. With the last of his strength, Sakuragi stops the knife by getting stabbed in his hand. Ishihara tries to finish him off, but Mario delivers a powerful punch, followed by a barrage of blows that leave Ishihara's face unrecognizable. Despite his critical condition, Sakuragi survives, and the boys carry him to the freedom he deserves. As they make their escape, they vow not to forget their three friends left behind, determined to soon return and save them as well.